I'm talking today to Vince Caristo in Bloomington, Indiana, and Vince is the bicycle pedestrian coordinator for the city. Tell us what you do as bicycle pedestrian coordinator here in the city.
Sure, I'd be happy to. I've been here about 3 years as bicycle pedestrian coordinator. I moved here in early 2011, and so there are really three main parts to my job. That's how I describe it. One part is working with other departments in City Hall to develop bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure. That takes different forms depending on the funding source and the type of project, whether it's sidewalks or bike lanes or a trail project. But that's a big part of what I do, is advising on the actual design and planning of bicycle trails. Another part of what I do is I'm a transportation planner with the Bloomington Monroe County MPO, and I do general tasks for them. I do a crash report, analyze not just bicycle pedestrian crashes, but all the crashes in the county. We do long range planning, which essentially trying to match up the regions and the city's transportation needs over the next 30 years with the resources that we think we'll have available to meet them. So that's another important part of what I do in my job. The sort of other part that I do is more of an advocacy role, running programs and events. Here in Bloomington, some communities, every community runs it differently, but here in Bloomington, our city government takes a pretty active and large role in teaching bicycle education classes, coordinating safe routes to school programs, organizing bike rides, helping all the sort of soft programs that help build bicycle culture and increase awareness throughout the community.
So what kind of bicycle infrastructure do you have here in Bloomington?
Sure, yeah, starting with the downtown, our Beeline Trail is the newest multi-use trail in the city. And it extends a 3.1 mile trail that starts in downtown Bloomington and starts on the near west side neighborhood to the west and kind of goes right through the middle of downtown and heads south to Country Club Road. At Country Club Road starts one of the Bloomington's first rail trails, the Bloomington Rail Trail, which is actually a crushed gravel path. Heads south for another 2 or 3 miles where it intersects with the Clear Creek Trail, and there's a small roundabout with the intersection of two multi-use trails, and that heads north, northwest. The Clear Creek Trail goes northwest for somewhere between 2 to 3 miles and ends at Tapp Road. The entire network, so from the beginning of the Beeline Trail all the way down to the end of the Clear Creek Trail, it's about 7 to 8 miles of multi-use trail, off-street trail that one can ride. So, that's growing. So just this past year, we completed a project along Tapp Road that it created an underpass for people to access the Clear Creek Trail across Tapp Road. Created more parking for that area. The ultimate plan is to connect the Clear Creek Trail to the Wapahani Mountain Bike Park, which is just to the north, and our Twin Lakes Recreation Center, which is the city's a major parks and recreation facility in the city. Both those, the Twin Lakes Center is expected to be connected via multi-use path to the center of town sometime in the next few years. We have a side path that gets you part of the way there now, but we have plans to finish that path. Along Tapp Road, at the end of where the trailhead for the Clear Creek Trail is, maybe a few miles to the east is the Jackson Creek Trail. And that's a new rail trail that was completed sometime 2010, 2011, just before I got here. Slowly, we are actually connecting with multi-use path. trailhead of the Clear Creek Trail to the trailhead of the Jackson Creek Trail. So the long-term vision is to connect those two. So our total network of bike infrastructure is about 70 miles. It goes on the street, off the street, through our downtown, connects most of the major neighborhoods, parks in our community. We also have Wakpahani Mountain Park, which is kind of a great little, we call it diamond in the rough, if you will.
Okay.
It was the state of Indiana's first mountain bike park. But
Really?
once the Brown County State Park was opened by IDEM to mountain bike enthusiasts to build a trail network, and they developed it into one of the greatest mountain biking destinations. We've got about 37 miles of on-street bike facilities. It includes bike lanes and shared lanes. They really extend throughout the city. They connect mostly to our downtown and IU. But yeah, they extend throughout the city. Our first bike lanes were constructed on Washington and Lincoln Streets, between Grimes Lane and 10th Street. They go north-south. They're a one-way pair. They're actually installed primarily as a traffic calming measure to try and reduce vehicle speeds on those roads. You'll see a lot of new infrastructure that we've been experimenting with. That was one of the reasons we designed the guide, to understand this infrastructure, because we're using some new things. Things like bike boxes at high volume intersections.
Okay, so bike boxes. So the bike boxes across the lane, bike box. Bike boxes and...
So we use bike boxes at intersections to improve safety at intersections.
Yes.
What it does primarily is it helps prevent right turning vehicles turning into bicyclists when the bicyclist's going straight and a car is turning right. It also helps, it's called a right hook crash. It's a common and deadly type of bicycle crash. So in intersections where you have high volumes of bicycles and high right turn volumes, those are the places types of places we're looking for bike boxes. Right. The other thing a bike box does is it helps bicyclists make left turns on multi-lane roadways. So if you have like a 2-lane roadway and a bike lane next to it, if a bicyclist is going to make a left turn from there, they have to merge across 2 lanes of traffic, which can be tough. So if you put a bike box at a signalized intersection, when the light is red, it can aid bicyclists in crossing ahead of those lanes of traffic and getting in the front of the left turn lane. So those are the two real intended uses for bike boxes. We've tried different designs to see if we can increase compliance with them. Some people don't know what they are, don't know how to use them.
Sure.
But other things, we've installed a counterflow bike lane on Smith Avenue.
Which is counterflow.
A counterflow bike lane.
So it goes in the opposite direction of traffic, but it's controlled where it is. It's not anybody saying I can drive the wrong way in a bicycle with traffic, that you're controlling it.
Right. So we had a street where it used to be 2-way for all vehicles, but because of complications with school located along that route during pickup and drop off, they turned the road into 1-way. That's common. There's many things that impact the transport or road system. Schools are one of them. So we have this 1-way street that connected that was really wide enough. It's a narrow. It's kind of like an alley. It's maybe 20 feet wide, but plenty wide for a bike lane on one side and a pretty wide travel lane for vehicles on the other. We were doing a project on Walnut Street that I think Josh said he told you guys about, and it occurred to us that, hey, if when we were redesigning the signal for that intersection, it occurred to us that this would be the time to install, if you're going to do it, a counterflow bike lane on Smith Avenue. Because when you do a counterflow bike lane, you need to change the signaling at the intersection. You need to have a separate signal for bikes who are going in the opposite direction of travel. And so we did that. We have a separate bike signal there that clarifies things for bikes, and we were able to put sort of green paint across the intersection there to highlight to car drivers that, hey, watch out, this is sort of an unusual situation, watch out for bikes. We've used green paint in other areas like that to highlight the presence of bicycles in merging areas where bike lanes merge across travel lanes. Yeah, one of the things we implemented last year as well was, I guess our engineer, traffic engineer, says it's probably the only example. The only other place he's seen it in the U.S. is in Minnesota, advisory bike lanes, where on a narrow street that's too narrow for bike lanes on both sides, the standard, today is to install sharrows, right? And what a sharrow does, it takes a travel lane and places essentially almost a bike lane within the travel lane. In some places we call it a lane within a lane. We can do markings that make it actually look like a smaller lane within another lane. But it really is a travel lane for cars, and then the bike space is within that space. The advisory bike lane kind of flips that on its head, and it uses dashed lines to mark standard 5-foot bike lanes on both sides of a roadway. It has one travel lane in the middle. And the dashed lines mean that cars can enter that bike lane space. It's not dedicated space for bikes, but it's preferred use for bikes. If there's no bikes in the bike lane, the car can use the bike lane space. But when there is a bike, the car's expected to go in the middle lane. It's supposed to turn into a one-way lane street for cars. So we think it's worked really well. It works really well on low-volume roads. Roads where on-street parking occupancy is very low, or there is no on-street parking. So it's really limited conditions that we think it works well. And we tried it in one place. It works pretty well. Another thing we did was on East 3rd Street, which we found from Seattle, and we thought was a really interesting solution to conflicts with buses next to bike lanes. We installed what's called a bus island, which is in places where we have these along East 3rd Street near IU's campus. There's really high volume of really heavily used corridor. Bicyclists, pedestrians, transit users, tons of people. There's upwards of 50 buses an hour using this road. And so we had a plan in our bike plan and our bike roads implementation plan that asked us to put bike infrastructure on that street. We looked at that situation, and some of the designs for how to put the bike lane across the bus pull-off, all the designs included some version of having a dashed merging area across the bus pull-off area, where the bus would cross the bike lane to enter the merging area to pick up passengers, and then cross the bike lane again to exit the bus pull-off area.
User conflict.
Yeah, with upwards of 50 buses an hour in some weekdays, that's 100 conflicts, conflict points at each bus of those pull-offs. That seemed like a big deal. So anyway, bus pull-offs, what we do is we pull the bike lane. We actually move the pickup and drop-off area into where the pull-off area is. We pull that with concrete, and then pull the bike lane around the bus pickup area. So anyway, completely eliminates the conflict between buses and bikes. Has introduced, it's made things more difficult for wheelchair users, and there's some complications with blind persons that are having a tough time understanding where to use it. But that's when you're working in an urban environment. Bigger cities encounter this even more. I mean, any little changes you make, there's always going to be trade-offs, and we felt like in this case, it was certainly introduced new issues, but conflicts now between bikes and pedestrians crossing the bike lane. But we feel like they're more manageable than this sort of untenable conflict between buses and bikes.
So how do you go about educating people?
As much as bicycling has been increasing in the past 5 or 10 years, the number of people who actually bicycle is relatively still small, and the vast majority of people have never ridden a bicycle for transportation. They don't understand what to expect from bicyclists that they see on the road. And to be frank, it scares a lot of people when they see new markings in their street, when they encounter bicyclists on a road that they've never seen a bicyclist before. They don't know what to expect. They feel scared. It's natural to resist change, to have questions. So a lot of what we, our education, or a big piece of what we try and do in our education program is to increase awareness for not just bicyclists, but for drivers as well. as to what these new markings mean, how to navigate them, what it tells them about what to expect from bicyclists. When you see somebody riding the wrong way down the street with headphones on, no helmet, and blow through a stop sign all at once, you understand that here's a person who just doesn't, they've never been told what is safe, what's not safe, what their rights and responsibilities are as a bicycle. They just have no idea. So we felt like as a way to address frustrations and tensions that were arising sort of on our streets between different road users,
Yes.
and a way to improve safety, that we could have an outreach campaign that would be combined with some targeted, very limited enforcement to try and reduce unsafe behaviors that we
Yes.
see throughout the city. And that's what our
Yes.
Civil Streets campaign is. It's not just focused on bicyclists, it's not just focused on car drivers. It's focused on all road users, because we actually hear, when we start talking about it, we realize that, everybody has issues, whether that cause tension and lead and are precursors to traffic safety issues. Whether it's people we hear from, dog walkers
Yes,
and parents of children on the Beeline Trail complaining about bicyclists zipping by them too fast, or drivers complaining to us about people expecting them to, jumping out in front of them at trail crossings, expecting them to stop. The solution we kind of feel is really simple, and so if people could cultivate a little greater sense of respect and shared responsibility for safety, a little bit more understanding of what it's like to be standing in another person's shoes, to be, if you're a bicyclist, to understand what it feels like to a mother when you zip by their 3-year-old kid going 15 miles an hour, and what that makes her feel like. Or if you're a car driver, what it feels like to be standing on the curb in the rain and waiting while car after car goes by. A little bit of common understanding can go a long way in helping people just behave better on the streets, improve safety. So Civil Streets campaign is combining positive messaging, outreach campaign with some limited enforcement. We're working with the police. It's actually going on this week. They're primarily handing out warnings and some literature that we provided for them to really the most egregious offenders of sort of the target behaviors that we're focusing on this spring.
Yes.
We do have an ordinance that governs a lot of those issues. It needs to be updated. There's a lot of things that I would like to see changed in that ordinance, and that many other people would like to see changed with regards to bicyclists and pedestrians. We're working right now we're starting with the education. I mean, one of the places I hope the Civil Streets Initiative leads to is highlights the need for traffic safety laws that actually improve safety,
Yes.
that lead to more safer
Yes.
conditions. Because the way it is, our traffic safety laws at the local level and a lot of times the state level, they add more confusion
Yes.
than they do clarity in terms of instructing people what the safest thing to do is.
Yes.
An example, and the result is that it's difficult to point to a lot of our laws when we're trying to instruct people what to do, and the police officer in our enforcement community, they tend not to enforce laws that are vague
Yes.
and don't make
Because
sense.
they can't be prosecuted.
Right. So we're sort of, in our Civil Streets campaign and a lot of our education, we sort of transcend, we go beyond what in a lot of cases, what our specific law says, to just tell people what the safest and best thing to do is. And they do it at the state level too. If you look at the the Indiana driver's manual, it will tell you to yield to it says tells you to yield to pedestrians whenever they're present. That's the safest thing to do to tell a driver to do, but that's not what the law says.
That's not what the law says.
That is not what the law says.
That's not what the law says.
But is that good? Is that what you want to tell a driver to do with the best safe practice? Yeah, it is. So hopefully at all levels our laws can gradually approach what the safest and best thing to do is. But we're not there yet in Bloomington. We'll just take it one step at a time.
Vince, it's been a pleasure talking to you today about the pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure in Bloomington and how important it is to the city and its identity from way back in the Little 500 and where it's going for making Bloomington an even more desirable city. Thank you for all your information.
It has been a pleasure, Peter.
Very
Thank
cool.
you.
Thank you.